It's always fascinating to me on how the difference between we do this we say this the hunter or the hunted, right? There's a difference between being the hunter or the hunted, and I think the Clippers are starting to understand some of that difference. I don't actually think it matters once you get into the playoffs, right? You either win or you don't win. A lot of the media focus on the regular season goes away. We do this yearly where whether it's been LeBron's teams that go through a February malaise or whomever, we pay far too much attention to a win here, a loss there, a bad streak here, a bad streak there. But I notice all the knives coming out against the LA Clippers. And I'm not a Clippers apologist. I do think, though, that there's some inexperience in being the hunted, not the hunter. Last year, they're the feel-good story. They and the Brooklyn Nets, where they're playing on house money. Nobody had great expectations. They traded away Chris Paul. They're playing for the future. They're just a bunch of tough junkyard dogs, JYDs. And whatever success they had was way better than whatever success you expected. But man, this year it's different. This year you have that exact same team going through a similar season, and suddenly the knives come out. Case in point, they lost again. They lost again over the weekend. They've lost 3 in a row. Wasn't just that they lose, it's who you actually lose to. And I think what's most interesting is, I've seen TV programs, listened to radio shows. What's wrong with the Clippers? Kawhi Leonard doesn't score in the fourth quarter, and Kawhi Leonard struggling to be a closer. Okay. Or, here's just an or, Patrick Beverley's still not playing because he's got a bad groin. And, this other guy, Paul George, also not playing because he's got a gimpy hamstring. It's not just that you're taking 2 starters off the team. People haven't mentioned that with the Celtics game yesterday against the Lakers. Celtics-Lakers was a great game. Great game. I haven't heard one person outside of myself say, Kemba Walker didn't actually play. Yes, your all-star point guard didn't play in a game on the road against the Lakers. Now, does that mean Kemba would have been great? It does not. But I've heard many people point out, the Celtics bench got badly outscored. Yeah, that's because their best bench player was forced in the starting lineup because the starting point guard wasn't there. Duh. And of course you're going to deplete your bench when you move your best bench players up into the starting lineup. Same thing happened to the Clippers. So I don't know if it's the switch from being the hunter to the hunted. I don't know if it's just the haterade of us trying to jump on the Clippers who so arrogantly think they can create a team and make it into a championship team. When I say arrogantly, that's the view of others. That Kawhi Leonard doesn't have to play every single day. That he can only play 60 games and they'll still be successful. I don't know where it all comes from. I just know this. It's out there and it's pretty obvious. Right? Because the Clippers have the best record against winning teams. The Clippers are 2-0 against the Lakers. And the Clippers, when healthy, are a formidable threat, maybe even a favorite, to win an NBA championship. And you can sit here all you want and tell me, regular season. We haven't paid attention to regular season. It's not just they didn't have 2 starters. They didn't have their second best player and their heart and soul in Patrick Beverley. That's what they didn't have. And by the way, last week when they acquired Reggie Jackson, who was bought out in Detroit, and I said it doesn't necessarily make the Clippers better because any moment in the playoffs that Pat Beverley's not on the court and Reggie Jackson is a win for the opposition. Just in terms of his wiring and what he means to the team and how he plays, that team is built for that style of basketball, that style of leader, that style of point guard. That's not who Reggie Jackson is. And I'm not sure if you're aware, Reggie Jackson played. Patrick Beverley didn't. They didn't win the game. It just fascinated me on how all of a sudden the knives come out when the Clippers hit a tough patch and they're not playing 2 of their 5 best players, their maybe most important player in Beverley and their second most talented player in Paul George. Take any team in the NBA, any one of them. Take their point guard off the floor, even if he's not a great one, and take their second leading scorer off the floor. How do you think they'll compete? These teams are top heavy for a reason. Yes, Ryan Music.
Do you think it's that they've sort of, by the way that they've approached the regular season, they've essentially come off as slightly arrogant, like, hey, we're better than everyone else because we're so good, the regular season actually doesn't matter to us, and that's why people have sort of taken this like jaded approach towards the Clippers? I don't think Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, like those type of guys as individuals, come off as arrogant, but I think it's just this whole idea that they're like, hey, it doesn't really matter what record we end up with in the regular season. We're going to go out there and win the whole thing anyway.
But look, we've seen this before from the Spurs, right? We've seen it before from the Cavs. We've seen it before from a lot of teams where they haven't gone for it and they've played for the postseason and not for the regular season. We've seen this before. So I don't know. I struggle with why it's such a bigger deal with the Clippers. I do have a hypothesis. Would you guys like to hear it?
I would love to.
Okay. We would all agree that the NBA is part of the college basketball, which I love and I cover, and I've gotten a chance to be part of March Madness and the Final Four. Like, this is not in any way a shot at college basketball. I do love it. But it's not as important in the sports landscape anymore during the regular season, right? There's a lot of reasons why. Mostly because you can't identify who is what player or who they play for. They're either good and gone to the NBA or not good enough, not playing enough, and they transfer to another school. And you're like, I don't even know who's where or what, right? So college basketball isn't as talked about, isn't as important until the NCAA tournament as it used to be. The NBA and NBA plays a big role in that. And part of it is the NBA's new TV deal where you have, I think, 5 days a week, nationally broadcast NBA games. Ramos is probably the only one old enough, and he probably just gets underneath the wire. Right? Because Ramos, you're 50, right?
And that is affirmative.
Okay, so actually you're not old enough, but the difference, the reason, there's a lot of reasons that Vietnam was a disaster for us in terms of public sentiment. The biggest reason was it was the first time ever in the history of war that we saw casualties of our own soldiers on live national TV. Because it was the first time that we could have reporters in Vietnam and bodies draped in Old Glory on national TV. And you see that and you're like, wait, they're not even necessarily at war with us. It's not about them. It's about Russia. There's conflict. What are we doing over there? Way more people died in World War I and World War II, but we didn't see it. Right? By the time news got back, there was such patriotism in World War II that the government was able to control the propaganda and the fight continued. And, oh yeah, by the way, it helped. We didn't even get into the war until they attacked us at Pearl Harbor when we should have gotten the war long before that. But we were never attacked on our own soil. You add that into the fact that it was broadcast every day and there was no appetite for us to be there. There just wasn't. That's kind of what's happened with the NBA, where this is the first time ever that the NBA's regular season is discussed as often as it's being discussed, is broadcast as often. Like, I could go back and you talk about these super teams. Like, I can't remember those Heat games. I remember that when LeBron was confrontational towards Spoelstra in the first year, we talked about it. But there were a lot of different stretches that we didn't pay any attention to because we didn't see these games unless we studied that team. Now that's all changed because seemingly every Clipper game is talked about and discussed and dissected, even though you don't have two of your top five, maybe two of your top three playing. Things are different when they're evaluated on a daily basis as opposed to weekly basis, as opposed to monthly basis. That's the hypothesis. Hey, what up? Doug Gottlieb here. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Fox Sports Radio. You can catch my show, all the shows on Fox Sports Radio, unique interviews, strong takes, just interesting discussion on the sports topic of the day, of the week, of the month. It's all encompassing. It's everything you need right here on YouTube. Subscribe.